Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zonda's second quarter housing outlook. I am Ali Wolf, the chief economist with Zonda, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Kristine Smale, Zonda's senior vice president, Florida and Southeast expert. Before we begin, please note that we are recording today's session. So if you miss anything, don't worry, you will get the recording within 24 hours. We also believe that we'll probably run the full length of our scheduled time today, but if we have any extra time, we will take your questions. So please feel free to submit them at any time. Today's second quarter housing outlook is brought to you by Ally Lending. Thank you, Ally Lending, for your support. The remodeling industry is an important and growing part of our economy, as Zonda's building product expert Todd Tamilek can confirm. Ally Lending is a key player to help that space grow. Ally Lending provides home improvement financing options that give your customers the option to pay over time while you get paid once the project is complete. To learn more about the financing, please visit allylending.com/home improvement. And again, thank you, Ally Lending, for your sponsorship today. Now, as mentioned, I am with Zonda. Zonda, we are a housing data and consultancy firm. We track the entire building life cycle from raw land all the way up to the closing out of new home communities. We have teams actually across the globe, and we have advisors that are doing custom market studies. These are led by Tim Sullivan, our senior managing principal. We have researchers that are calling new home communities, driving across the country. We have satellite imagery. We're collecting data in a lot of different ways, and we have a huge team behind us that's making it all happen. And don't forget to reach out to us if you have questions about the industry. We're here to help. Please also save the date. December 1st, we have our Florida Deal Makers event in Tampa. The event brings together industry leaders from across the state for a market update and networking. So again, December 1st in Tampa. If you're around, please join us for our Florida Deal Makers event. Now, today's agenda. I have about 13 minutes from here to go through the national overview, and I'm going to provide you our updated national forecasts. Before I pass it off to Kristine, she's going to have 45 minutes to get through the entire state of Florida, so buckle up once we get there. So let me start by acknowledging some of the changes that we're seeing on the ground in the market. As you heard me mention, we track the entire building life cycle at Zonda. We also supplement our in-house data with qualitative information, trying to get some timely topics that are happening. And one of the questions we've been asking for a while is, how do builders feel about how the market is going relative to their expectations? In April, we had 60% of builders that said demand was on track or stronger than they expected. In May, we had 30% that said stronger or better than they expected. When you look at Florida, you can see the mix is a little bit different. There's a higher share of builders in Florida that are saying demand is slower than expected, but note that there's a higher cluster of that not worrisome, which really to me is capturing the idea that maybe some markets have gone from white hot to hot and other markets from hot to very warm, but we aren't seeing the market completely shift or fall off a cliff. And we have a lot of data to back that up a little bit later. But really the reason we're asking this is because of what's been happening with mortgages. So just a few weeks ago, we had mortgage rates that were pretty close to 6% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And as we look at the 10-year treasury, remember that's closely linked with where mortgage rates are. I think the good news is that has come down a bit from recent highs. And so we have mortgage rates now that are closer to 5 than closer to 6. But also think about why the 10-year is going down. Part of the reason that number is going down is because of some of the fears that we're seeing of a recession from a broader point of view. But as we're looking at the market, and we're thinking about how April, there was a little bit more enthusiasm. I think the mix between buyers motivated and deterred, it was more motivated in April. People looking at the mortgage rates and the home prices and the fact that they're still going up. That caused urgency, still that fear of missing out. And by the way, inflation still up 6 to 8%. And some people saying, well, housing is a great inflation hedge. But what we saw in May is a shift where there's more people that are deterred by what's going on. In some cases, deterred by choice, just feeling a little bit uneasy or uncomfortable with how the market is progressing. And some people deterred by force. Now, why do I say force? We pulled some math together and we said, okay, at the end of last year, what were home prices in different local markets? And then we thought or looked at the data and saw that mortgage rates were 3.1%. As you look down this list, Fort Myers, Northport, Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, you can see some of those top Florida markets. And that was at the end of last year. This is the current data. We're using a 5.3% interest rate. As you can see, the monthly payment in most markets across the country, and it varies on how much home price appreciation has happened, it's up over 40% in some markets compared to just last year. And we saw the writing on the wall. We saw affordability starting to get stretched. And last month in April, we called that the inflection point. And some of the trends that we saw in April have only been exaggerated as we moved through May. One of the numbers that we look at is contract cancellations. And nationally, we had about 40% of builders report an increase in contract cancellations. That was almost 60% in Florida. But this is what you need to know about cancellations. I think one, it's just a normal early warning sign of some kind of shifts in the market, which is why we're presenting on it. But we also need to put this in context. When you look at contract cancellations, this is not saying that they're everywhere, they're widespread. This is not necessarily alarming. It's just telling you that we do have more people on the margin that maybe have to or are forced to step out of the market. But a follow-up question we ask in our division president survey is, can you resell these homes? And for the most part, the answer is yes, though there are some builders that are saying it's just a little bit harder. They have to go obviously further down their interest list. Another part of the inflection point we're capturing is via incentives. So 2 months ago, we had 5% of builders said they had an increased use of incentives. Last month, it was 16%. For May, it was 41%. And we can go into our Zonda database and we can look at what incentives are out there, what dollar amount, what percent of overall projects, and how does it vary by market. So you can see in the table some top markets in Florida. We also pulled out Jacksonville on the right. When you're looking at incentives, this is another thing. It's not saying that incentives are everywhere. We're seeing right now, most of the incentives are closing costs with the preferred lender. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit. It's easy to do. And from a consumer point of view, a little bit goes a long way. But we are seeing that shift, and that goes back to the inflection point. Now, we have this interesting dynamic, though, that if many of you read the news this morning, the new Case-Shiller home price data came out. It still showed double-digit home price growth. When you look at some of the price numbers, remember to look at context and think about what time frame that's showing. Today's report is looking at prices of homes that were selling 3 to 4 months ago. So the data is incredibly lagged. You can look at other sources. We at Zonda have pricing data. There are other resale providers that are out there. You can still see overall double-digit home price appreciation, whether you're looking at entry level, we're also calling that bottom tier, move up, middle tier, luxury, top tier. Table on the left is new home, table on the right is resale. But as we look at this data, we like to pull it as current as we can. So again, looking at our division president survey for May, nationally, 64% of builders raised prices. 2 months ago, that was 97%. So we've definitely seen the number of builders raising prices come down, but it's still more than 50% of builders raising prices month over month. In Florida, you have a greater share, a higher number of builders that still raised prices, 75%. What's notable, though, is the dollar amount. A couple months ago, we were talking $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 month over month increases. Today, we're talking more of 1, 2, 3, 5 month over month thousand. When we look at this, Kristine's going to go into detail later about inventory in some of the different markets and some of the supply reasons behind this. So as we're talking about demand, there have been people that have fallen off, but because we have inventory so constrained, there's still more people than homes available. Another reason the prices keep going up is because of costs. We know some of the building material inputs have come down in price, but when you look at year over year or 2-year trends, we still have the cost of building a home a lot higher. As we're looking at this and we're trying to make sense of the market, an inflection point, more cancellations, more incentives, but still the ability to raise prices, still some pricing power. To me, a follow-up question is, well, who's buying and how are they holding up? So what we look at is who are the most active shoppers, and we've been tracking this over time. Nationally, move up has been number one for the past 2 years in the new home space. And take a note of the trend. You're not really seeing move up buyers getting priced out as we see the market shift. Entry level, second most active. Look at that first 3 bars. You can see that pretty steep and quick step down. Entry level buyers getting crushed in today's market. And then relocation. You see relocation has steadily been increasing share. As we look at this is nationally. When you look at Florida, the same top 3, move up number 1, entry level 2, relocation 3. And given I have 5 more minutes to get through my presentation, I'm not going to go through each of them. I just want to focus on relocation because we know that in Florida, this is a big part of the story. So when you look at migration trends, places like Jacksonville and Tampa have been in the top 10 for more people moving in than moving out for the past 5 years. Now they're in the top 10 when we look at an area that has a population of 1 million plus. We also like to say, okay, we don't care about population. Let's just look at where we have the highest growth rates. As you look at this table, you see a lot of Florida responses. In fact, 60% of the top 20 areas with the most positive domestic net migration are in Florida. And as we look at this, I think you ask yourself, well, why do people move? Maybe it's weather reasons, lifestyle reasons, taxes, politics, being closer to friend and family. And then there's also a big part of it that has to do with affordability. And so what we wanted to look at is what are some common migration paths and what's happening with affordability as these markets in Florida become expensive relative to themselves. So let's just look at the top one here. We have a common path is from Washington, D.C. to Jacksonville. Jacksonville used to be 47% cheaper than D.C. Today, it's still almost 40% cheaper. So yes, Jacksonville has gotten more expensive, but so has DC. That relative value stands. To us, that becomes an important number to track over time is, do we still have that reason why someone wants to live there? Now we're looking at this and we understand the relative value, but I also know that it's very easy to get complacent and say, well, look at these numbers, look at this. This is the reason Florida's doing well. And I think we can all understand that, but I also think we shouldn't get in the mindset of things can only go up from here. We only have nothing but positive news. Because as we talked about, we're talking rising mortgage rates. We're talking a 40% change in the monthly payment. We're talking home prices that are still going up, and the price ceiling is absolutely still a risk. Now, when you look at Florida relative to the national average, you don't have as many challenges. So this chart is looking at what challenges are out there from a buyer point of view. And you can see hesitancy from buyer number 1, pre-qualified buyers no longer able to qualify, and qualified buyers in general having trouble. We're seeing that is part of the market. Nationally, it's a very increasing, you can see the line, it's just like a straight line up. You can see not as prominent in Florida, but you are seeing especially that hesitancy from buyers, how some of that national news can impact local sentiment as well. So as I go to my final section, we're going to go through our forecasts, and I want to mention a few things before I show them to you. The first is our forecasts are a collaborative effort. It's myself, Jonathan Dienhart, Nick Skoulas, John Mazzaros. We have a forecast model. We're updating this every single month. We're updating it as we learn new information. And so we may change our forecast again next month, depending on how the economy progresses, depending on what happens with mortgage rates. But for us, we want to be aware and not ignore what's happening on the wider scale. And I'm prefacing it like that because what I'm going to show you are forecasts that look different than the last time we met. So as we look at single family housing starts for this year, we are calling for just modest growth. And going into next year, we're calling for a 5% drop in starts. Now that 5% drop, to put it in context, I saw a paper recently from a very big organization many of you would know. They're calling for a 20% drop in housing starts. So we're not that dramatic, though we do think there will be some softening on the market. Going back to the discussion with Todd Tamilek, I said he's our building product and remodeling expert. We were talking about this year, we could be wrong meaning our forecast could be too low. So I think this year the risk is to the upside. As we look at next year, based on what we're seeing today, we do think a little bit of softening for starts. We also think some softening in sales. Now, as we look at the sales numbers, our new home sales forecast for this year is actually more positive than the year-to-date numbers. So a negative number is not us going out on a limb, it's what's actually happening on the ground. We're trying to put together the fact that we think there will be fewer sales caps. We think there will be a little bit more inventory, but we also know affordability is a big part of the backdrop, and that has contributed to our change in overall forecasts. And as we look at the market, I didn't have time to go through the economic backdrop, but that's part of the reason we've adjusted our forecasts, is because of the economic uncertainty, because of some of the financial volatility, because of the change in headlines, the change in consumer sentiment. We're trying to consider all of that and not be too reactive. But we also, as Zonda, are working really hard with our clients to think about strategy. What fundamentals matter? What matters to the consumer? And how do we get people to move when you have 90% of homeowners that have a mortgage rate sub 5%? And what we know from over time is focusing on the fundamentals, the good product, the great location, something well executed is what ultimately wins as the market shifts. So with that, I would like to stop my presentation and bring in Kristine Smale, again, Zonda's Florida expert, to take the discussion a little bit more local. Kristine is a lead advisor in the Southeast, running much of our custom market study business across the region. Kristine is known in the industry as a thorough, strategic, and reliable researcher. But to me, Kristine is a dear friend. Kristine and I connected on a love for data and our industry years back, and I'm always impressed with the information Kristine seeks and shares. And you'll get a little bit of that here today. So Kristine, I'm passing it to you.
Thank you, Ali. What a kind introduction. I really appreciate that. And sentiments are mutual. So as Ali mentioned, we have a lot of ground to cover today. Florida is a very big state, and we are going to start in Jacksonville. So for those of you who aren't aware, just to orient everyone with the geography here, Jacksonville, up in the northeast corner of the state, it's a 4-county metro area, including Nassau, Duval, Clay, and St. Johns County. So one of the biggest items in Jacksonville over the last year has been the employment situation. We have seen incredible growth in Jacksonville employment. There have been nearly 40,000 new jobs added. Nearly 35% of those jobs are in the high income sectors, which are those darker purple bars here, particularly in professional and business services. Jacksonville actually gained national recognition from the Wall Street Journal in the last several months as one of the top 5 job markets in the entire country. So the Wall Street Journal was reporting that, the best markets for employment aren't necessarily the largest. Jacksonville came in actually at number 15 in 2020 and shot up to number 5 just after Austin, Nashville, Raleigh, and Salt Lake City in 2021. So Jacksonville on the national radar in terms of the job growth. So what has that meant for housing? Well, we've seen a significant increase in housing starts in Jacksonville over the last year. We've seen a 22% year-over-year increase. But we are seeing, and for those of you who've watched Ali and Tim's presentations before, that disconnect between starts and actual home closings due to the production delays. So that gap is widening in the Jacksonville MSA, and something we're certainly keeping an eye on, but overall year over year, incredible growth. The submarkets that have actually experienced the most growth are Central St. John's and St. Augustine down in St. Johns County. Just as a reminder, that's the southern area of the metro. And then we also have West Nassau, which Nassau County has been kind of off the radar for the last 10 years, but has certainly come back on the radar in the last 3 to 4 years. There have been a couple of large master plan communities opening in Nassau County, really leading to some monumental growth in starts activity. Finally, we have Arlington, South Side, and North Side. Those are all just different areas of Duval County, kind of central around the entire downtown Jacksonville metro area. Price increases in Jacksonville have been monumental since the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you look at the red bar is really showing you kind of once we saw in June of 2020 that housing boom as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So prior to that, you could get a new home, and these are average monthly base prices for all actively selling new home projects across the metro area. You could get a new home on average for less than $300,000, not only in Clay County, but also in Duval County and Jacksonville as well. Well, flash forward 24 months, where are we? Both of those counties are approaching $400,000 for an average base price. St. Johns County also has had exponential price growth over $500,000. And Nassau County, the area in North Jacksonville, has seen monumental price growth as well. Again, a lot of this has been able to be sustained because of the monumental migration we've had to the area. Looking at future supply. So if we look at the VDL supply, which are vacant developed lots on the ground, we typically expect to see between 24 and 36 months of lot supply. If you look across the various counties in the Jacksonville metro, Clay County, 7.4 months of lot supply. Duval County, 8.5 months. Nassau, just over a year at 13 months. And then St. Johns County, quantity-wise, they have the most at over 4,000 VDLs, but based on the starts activity, that just equates to only 8.4 months of lot supply. So we're in a tight supply environment, as Ali mentioned earlier. But the good news is that we do have quite a bit of lot development occurring in the metro area. Approximately 25,000 lots are in various stages of development. Most of those are occurring in Duval and St. Johns County, where we see a lot of the activity. If we want to look at the submarket wise, where this activity is occurring, we actually have quite a bit of development occurring in the West Side. West Side is part of Duval County, again, the largest area of the entire metro in terms of development activity, followed by Central St. John's with St. Johns County, and then South Side, which is also part of Duval County. One thing that's really important when you look at this chart is looking at what stage of development these lots are in, meaning when are they going to come online? If streets are completed, those green bars, the green color represented on the bars, those are going to be coming online in the next quarter. Paving underway, likely the next quarter or two, still sometime in 2022. Excavating roads, likely the end of 2022 or the first part of 2023. So we expect to see some near-term supply and growth opportunities in the South Side submarket, in Central St. John's, in North St. John's, and in the West Side submarket. So it's really important to look at what stage of development these lots are in as well. So wrapping up Jacksonville, some things you should know. St. Johns County, which has the highest average base prices in the Jacksonville MSA, has actually the highest ranked school district in the entire state. Jacksonville is number 2 for domestic net migration in 2020 to 2021. Ali mentioned this as well. It's been in the top 10 for every year we've been doing this since 2015, looking at those top 10 markets. Jacksonville is also a top baby chaser market. So the baby chaser list is something really unique that Ali and the economics department team came up with in 2018. And it was really correlating migration data, looking at the relationship between those of childbearing years in relation to those who are, say, 55 plus. Essentially, where are the grandparents moving? Where are they chasing those grandkids? Jacksonville has been in the top 10 over the last 3 years and continues to move up the ranks. There's a revitalization going on of downtown Jacksonville. Many of you may have heard of the revitalization going on in downtown Tampa that occurred over the last 5 years. We're seeing very similar activity happening in downtown Jacksonville right now, and it's only going to lead to continued growth of the metro downtown. Jacksonville is also a growing logistics hub. That's one of the reasons the metro area really thrived during the COVID-19 pandemic. They had logistics. There are 2 major interstates that go through Jacksonville. There's plenty of logistics area space on the west side of the market, and it connects to the entire state within a day's drive. So it's certainly a growing logistics hub in Jacksonville. Finally, the Jacksport, which is the largest seaport in the state of Florida, recently completed a channel deepening project, which allows them to accommodate larger ships and essentially increase their port capability. So this is a huge economic driver for the area and will lead to continued growth in Jacksonville. Moving on, we've got a lot of ground to cover. As I mentioned, we'll go to Central Florida. So Central Florida contains the Orlando MSA 4-county area, which is Lake, Seminole, Orange, and Osceola County. But here at Zonda, we've got data for a lot more than just the Orlando MSA. When we refer to Central Florida, we're also referring to Daytona Beach, Port Orange, which are Flagler and Volusia counties. We're referring to Brevard County, which is also known as the Space Coast, Melbourne area. We're looking at the Villages and Ocala, which are Sumter and Marion counties. And then finally, we're also looking at Polk County, which is synonymous with the Lakeland MSA, and that's really the area along I-4 that connects Orlando to Tampa. Huge growth occurring here. So just to set the backdrop as we talk about Central Florida. Here in Orlando, we've had major recovery in the leisure and hospitality industry. That was one of the industries that was hardest hit during the COVID-19 pandemic. We lost nearly 40,000 jobs in that job sector. We've recovered nearly all of them. So over the last 12 months, very strong recovery in leisure and hospitality. Also note the job growth in trade, transportation, and utilities, but specifically the professional and business services sector as well. Orlando is a growing area for tech, and we can see that, as we go to the next slide, where a lot of this job growth is occurring. So LinkedIn actually came out with a study over the last year, the top areas with a net inflow of tech workers per 10,000 LinkedIn users. So we've got Austin leading the way, followed by Nashville, then Charlotte, Jacksonville coming up, but Orlando makes the list as well, coming in at number 12 for one of the top areas for tech growth and job growth in migration. Just a quick sample, our team looked at all the different companies that either expanded or relocated to the Central Florida area, the Orlando MSA over the last year. Disney was a big announcement. We've also had several businesses expand their operations, aviation businesses, KPMG Professional Services, Care AI, a technology firm. So lots of job growth and expansion of existing companies within Orlando. But when we translate that to the housing market and we look at the annual housing starts, it's been relatively flat in the greater metro area. We've been hovering around 15,000 housing starts for the past several years. And how can that be possible if we're seeing such strong employment growth and we're seeing such strong migration? Well, it's because most of these housing starts are occurring in the greater Central Florida area. Again, I went through the different counties that we include when we're looking at broader Central Florida. And if we roll up the housing starts across all those different counties, it's 9 of them. We have more than 36,000 housing starts in the last year, a growth of 15%. Rolled all that up together, number 3 in the entire country, right behind Dallas and Houston in terms of starts activity. So Greater Central Florida is a huge housing market. We've got lots of active builders in there. And the one thing about Central Florida that's unique is expansion can occur in all areas. It can go to the north, it can go to the south, the east, and the west. It is one of the only markets in the entire state that is not landlocked by either water or the Everglades. The most actively selling communities, remember Polk County, that connection between Tampa and Orlando, 2 very strong housing markets, 2 very strong economies. Well, that's where we have most of the actively selling communities in Central Florida, nearly 140 actively selling communities over the last year, followed by Osceola, Orange, and Lake counties. But those are all in the traditional metro Orlando MSA. And then finally, we've got a lot of actively selling communities in Volusia, Brevard County, Brevard being the Space Coast, Marion County, Alachua, which is the Gainesville area, Seminole County, again, the Central Orlando MSA, and finally Flagler and Sumter counties. So across the board, if we roll up all of these actively selling communities, we have nearly 1,000. The highest prices are actually in Orange and Seminole counties when we're looking at new home base prices. The average base prices in those 2 county areas, again, part of the Central Orlando MSA, approaching $450,000 to $500,000. But look at the high prices in Brevard County. Brevard, synonymous with the Space Coast. You've got Melbourne, and schools are very, very strong in Brevard as well. So we're seeing strong price growth there. Across the board, housing in all of these various counties has approached and surpassed that $300,000 price point. And again, a lot of that is due to the in-migration to the area from more expensive markets. If we're looking at what lot development, or excuse me, what the lot supply looks like in terms of VDL, again, VDL meaning a lot that you can actively go and start a house on, you expect between 24 and 30 months. Well, across the entire central business area, the entire Orlando MSA, we have less than 2 years of lot supply. Lake County, just less than 2 years at 21 months. And I want to add that some of this lot supply includes an expansion of the villages. We also have Orange County, just about a year, Osceola County, less than a year, and Seminole County, very, very limited VDL supply. A lot of this is due to the fact that we can't, there's not a lot of developable land in Seminole County. When we're looking at the broader area, it's a bit of a mixed picture. Flagler County, according to our count, has about 31.4 months of supply, but this is an area where there's been a lot of spot lot development from about 50 years ago, where lots were platted and maybe half developed, but some could be missing utilities, or they're just located in an area where a builder is not apt to go. So take it into context when you look at all of this lot supply. Sumter County, the Villages, has 5.6 months, very, very tight lot supply. Volusia County, one of the areas with the most actively selling communities, less than a year of lot supply. So across the board, we've got a mixed picture in the outlying areas of Central Florida, but it remains very tight for all counties. The good news is more supply is coming. Again, back to some of the data that Ali has presented in previous webinars. We've got a lot of supply underway. We can see that most of it is coming in Osceola, Lake, and Polk counties in Central Florida. That's where the bulk of the future lots will be. If we look at it by submarket, again, the timing is very, very important. We expect to see some near-term supply coming online in West Osceola, Northeast Polk, Claremont, the South Lake County area. More lot supply later in the year. That's kind of the dark blue lines. It looks a little bit better. We expect to see more of these VDLs become available second half of 2022, likely the fourth quarter. But then again, there's a big pipeline of development activity that won't likely come online until early next year. So Central Florida, some things you should know before we continue our cross the state, adventure today. There are 3 areas of Central Florida that were in the top 10 for U-Haul growth cities. That was Kissimmee, actually came in at number 1. This is when U-Haul releases their annual tracking report of who's moved where and who's moved to the most cities across the country. Kissimmee came in at number 1. That's in Osceola County. Palm Bay, Melbourne area came in the top 10 as well. They were number 7. And then Claremont, which is in Lake County, came in at number 9. Disney, in case you missed it, is moving 3,000 jobs to Central Florida from California. These will be high income jobs. Orlando, again, a top baby chaser market. The Villages, I mentioned, it keeps on growing. So once you think the Villages, oh no, they're running out of land, well, you're sadly mistaken. They've made some big land purchases in the last couple of years, which allows them to continue to expand beyond Sumter County in Marion and Lake counties as well. And then finally, in response to all of this growth, the Orlando International Airport just completed their terminal expansion. It should be open to the public in September of 2022, and it should accommodate, according to news sources, an additional 1 million passengers on a yearly basis. So moving across the state, that's Central Florida, let's go quickly to Tampa and Sarasota. So Tampa, the MSA, again, includes 4 counties: Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco, and Hernando. But one thing that we also want to include when we talk about Tampa is looking at the Sarasota MSA as well, technically referred to as the Northport Sarasota Bradenton MSA, which includes Manatee County and Sarasota County. The reason that we want to look at these 2 areas together is those people who live in Manatee and Sarasota counties can easily commute to jobs in Tampa. So what happens in Tampa certainly affects the housing market in the Sarasota area. But looking back to Tampa and the job growth that has occurred in Tampa over the last year. So this is pretty incredible. 72,000 new jobs year over year. 35% of those have been in the high income sectors in Tampa. Financial activities, professional and business services really leading the way. Again, Tampa is showing up on LinkedIn's index as one of the top areas for tech growth. And if we look at the corporate relocations or expansions that have just occurred in the last year to 18 months since the COVID-19 pandemic, ARC Investment Management, a large hedge fund, that was big news, moving more than 30 jobs from New York City to St. Petersburg. Dynasty Financial Partners, Pfizer, Suzuki Marine, and the list goes on and on. Every week, there are new announcements about technology or financial services firms moving to the Tampa MSA and establishing either a satellite office or their headquarters. So this has resulted in very, very strong housing growth. Again, 16,700 housing starts over the last year. That's a 9% year over year growth. And we've seen most of that starts activity occur actually in Pasco County. Remember, Pasco County being just north of downtown. Hillsborough County used to be the behemoth when it came to housing activity in Tampa. There have been some moratoriums that have gone into play and affected housing activity there. Still a strong player across the metro area, but Pasco County gained significant ground over the last year in terms of housing starts. We've also seen significant growth in Hernando County, Hernando being the northernmost county of the MSA, and that is primarily due to affordability as developers and builders move further and further north of Metro Tampa to create attainable housing. But still, as Ali mentioned, it's been relatively affordable for relocators. So here, what you're looking at on this graph is the average monthly base price by county since January of 2020 and how this has all grown. Pinellas, and again, this is based on the communities that we are monitoring with our Zonda research and new home base prices. It depends on the unit types being offered. Pinellas, there are certainly less actively selling communities. Pinellas is the St. Pete area, and there's just a lack of developable land. Those communities that are in development are typically urban infill, luxury condominium products. So we have a higher base price. However, if you look at the other counties as part of the Tampa MSA, Hernando, Hillsborough, and Pasco County, we're still relatively affordable compared to other large metro areas. Hillsborough leads the way with average base prices over $500,000, Pasco approaching 500,000, and then Hernando approaching 400,000. That's been significant increases over the last 24 months. Again, it's attainable and palatable to relocators, but an increasing concern is for the local people in the Tampa Bay area to afford housing, just given this rapid price increase. And unfortunately, we're going to be facing those supply constraints over the next several months. We have VDL inventory by county. Hernando shows 34 months of supply, but again, a lot of these are spot lots and scattered, maybe not necessarily connected to municipal water and sewer. So the actual developable inventory in Hernando is slightly less than that VDL count if we look at actual communities. Hillsborough, Pasco, less than a year of lot supply, actually less than 9 months of lot supply, extremely tight. Pinellas, just over a year of lot supply, but again, you don't have a lot of lots in terms of actual quantity in Pinellas due to the lack of developable land. We are seeing 22,000 lots under development, which is good. Most of these are going to occur in Pasco County. More than 50% of lots in various development stages are in Pasco County, followed by Hillsborough. But again, look at when this development will come online. Tampa actually has a tighter lot supply situation than pretty much any other metro area throughout Florida. We are only going to see 14% of all lots in Tampa come online this quarter, sometime in the second quarter of 2022, or next quarter, the third quarter, based on their development activity. The overwhelming majority, and again, this is one of the tightest supply situations in the state of Florida. Most of these lots will not come online until the fourth quarter, or look at more than 56% likely in the first quarter of 2023. So what does that mean in terms of supply, in terms of constrained inventory and pricing? Well, we expect a lot of pricing in Tampa to remain where it is and continue to increase. Moving to Sarasota, I said the Sarasota area is a great area for commuters to Tampa, but you cannot ignore how strong the Sarasota economy is in itself. So one thing that we like to look at is the percentage of jobs that have been recovered since the COVID-19 pandemic compared to the national average. So red bar indicating 100%. Sarasota surpassed that last year. They've been on a very, very strong trajectory. Nearly 140% of jobs have been recovered in the Sarasota MSA, which essentially means we're looking at a much larger job market in Sarasota compared to where we were pre-COVID. That has in turn led to incredible housing start growth, a 46% year-over-year increase in housing starts, coming in at over 10,000 just in Manatee and Sarasota counties alone. That is one of the largest increases in the entire country. So huge growth in the Sarasota MSA, but look at that disconnect as well between closings and starts. Now, remember, I mentioned we've got 22,000 lots under development in the Tampa MSA, which again included 4 counties. If we're looking at the Sarasota MSA, which only includes 2 counties, Manatee and Sarasota County, we still have 18,000 lots under construction. That means a lot of the growth opportunities are going to continue and be in the Sarasota MSA. Most of this is happening in Manatee County, where you have nearly 11,000 lots that are in the current excavation stage, and what this means as well, a lot of this is north of the Manatee River, south of Hillsborough County, but north of the Manatee River is, again, a prime location for commuters who are working throughout the Tampa MSA. So huge continued growth opportunity in Sarasota. So some things to leave you with before we move on to another geographic area of Florida is that St. Petersburg was actually termed the next Austin by Kathy Wood. She's the leader of ARC Investments. And that, I think, is very, very true, just given the amount of technology job growth that we've witnessed over the last couple of years. The Tampa Bay MSA is becoming a tech headquarters and could very well be the next Austin. Migration really accelerated during the pandemic to this area. We saw this throughout Florida. Like Orlando and Jacksonville, Tampa Bay is a top baby chaser market. To put the region in context, if you add up the starts activity between Tampa and Sarasota, that's 27,000 starts, which is roughly the size of Atlanta. Another interesting point is that the top migration market to Tampa is from Orlando. Remember, we talked about the I-4 corridor in Polk County. So we see a lot of movement between Tampa and Orlando, people moving from one area to the next. And that's before we even look at the migration from other metro areas outside of the state. Sarasota is actually home to Lakewood Ranch, one of the best best-selling multi-generational master plan community in the entire country. And that's actually in Manatee and Sarasota County, huge growth year over year. And the MSA is also home to Welland Park, which is rising in the ranks in terms of sales, located in Venice, Florida, also multi-generational and located in Sarasota County. Finally, I think it's really important that we watch for development news about Angeline, which is a 6,200 acre master plan community. And it's actually being developed with Metro Development, or it's being developed by Metro Development, but in conjunction with the Moffitt Cancer and Research Institute. It's going to be a very unique community in Pasco County, will really drive a lot of growth. It's located right off the Suncoast Parkway, and it's going to have an agri-hood as well. So I've got about 13 minutes, and I'll see how much more ground I can cover literally throughout the state of Florida. Let's move down to Southwest Florida. Southwest Florida is actually two metro areas. The larger region referred to as Southwest Florida, but it includes Lee County, which is synonymous with Cape Coral and Fort Myers, and also Collier County, which is synonymous with Naples, both MSAs. These areas have traditionally attracted a lot of retirees, but like most metro areas in Florida, we've seen great job growth over the last 12 years. In Naples, we added nearly 10,000 new jobs in the past year, 15% of those being in the high income categories. We look at the percentage of jobs recovered, beating the national average in terms of jobs recovered since the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, that means this economy in Naples is larger. We see even stronger numbers if we look at Fort Myers. Fort Myers has actually recovered nearly 120% of jobs lost since the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a larger metro area. And look at where those jobs are concentrated. Again, it's the high income sectors, financial activities, professional and business services. So very, very strong job growth here in the Southwest Florida area as well. We saw a 20% increase in housing starts in the last year. That's pretty phenomenal across the board. But we are seeing that growing disconnect between starts and closings. But year over year, a 20% increase in housing starts in Lee and Collier County. Really quickly, Southwest Florida, because we're running out of time, a few things you should know. Babcock Ranch, which is actually in Lee and Collier County, or Lee and Charlotte counties, excuse me, on the north side of Fort Myers MSA, is a large master plan community, really benefited during the COVID-19 pandemic because the technology was all in place and there is a lot of open space. for outdoor living. It's actually the first solar powered town in the United States as well, and is experiencing growth across all generations and buyer groups. We're also seeing growing luxury brands come to Collier County down in Naples and Lee County. The Ritz-Carlton residences will be selling a large development in Estero, which is in South Lee County. You've got the Four Seasons opening a large hotel in Naples, and Rosewood Residences, which only offers 6 locations across the entire country, or the entire world, excuse me. Only 3 in the United States. Naples will be the 3rd. The Canadians and UK buyers have traditionally been a strong source of demand. They actually waned during the pandemic because of the travel restrictions. Now that those have been lifted, these buyers are back, and they are certainly investing in real estate in Southwest Florida. And finally, Lee County, this was just released, was ranked number 9 for population growth in the United States in 2021. So strong migration fuel demand here in Southwest Florida. Moving on to Southeast Florida as we wrap it up. So Southeast Florida is actually a broad region on the entire East Coast. We've got 6 counties here: Indian River, St. Lucie, Martin, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. These are all synonymous with various metro areas: Miami, Miami Beach, Kendall area. Broward County includes Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach. Palm Beach County includes West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, and Delray. St. Lucie County and Martin County together comprise the St. Lucie MSA. And then finally, Indian River County is synonymous with the Sebastian Vero Beach MSA. So what can we report about this region? Well, it's really the same. In terms of job growth, it's been very, very strong. If we total Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, and Sebastian Vero Beach, that's nearly 160,000 new jobs over the last year. And I won't go through and show you, but again, it's been roughly 20 to 30% in the high income sectors. We've sold out many more communities than we've managed to open in these various counties. You can see Palm Beach leading the way in terms of projects that we have sold out of over the last 12 months, followed by Miami-Dade, Broward, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Martin County. One thing that's really interesting about this slide that I want to point out is we've actually opened more communities in St. Lucie County and Martin County than we sold out of over the last year. That really gives you an idea of where the trajectory of growth is occurring in the South Florida market area. St. Lucie, huge growth. I know we said in our Outlook webinar last year that we expected this, and we're seeing it here in the numbers. And then Martin County, although on a relative basis, relatively small, but Martin County has traditionally been a bit difficult for new residential development. We're starting to see some of that ease up, which is exciting because Martin County is a very desirable place to live. It's a huge boating area and also has highly ranked schools. Prices, it depends on where you go, but generally in South Florida, the further south you are, the higher your home price is. So Miami-Dade, again, this is just actively selling new communities. This includes actively selling high-rise condos, which we've seen a lot of. Average base price hovering around $2 million. If you've got over 1.1 million, you can look in Palm Beach County or Broward County. Broward particularly has a lot of infill development because there just aren't large tracts of land to develop anymore. So lots of infill, lots of attached development, attached product, and lots of redevelopment opportunities. Prices in Martin County, not a lot of communities open, but hovering around $850,000. If you want to bargain in South Florida, you certainly have to go to Indian River County and St. Lucie County, where you can still manage to get a new home for, on average, around $400,000 to $500,000. The attached share of product is growing. I mentioned that. This is due to 2 different reasons. Number one being the lack of developable land, given the landlocked nature of South Florida To the west, again, bordered by the Everglades, no development there. And then to the east, the Atlantic Ocean. So we are starting to see a more and more proportionate share of attached product compared to detached. And that's across this entire 6-county area. And if we look at year-to-date sales, we are actually seeing more attached sales than detached sales, despite some of those more affordable options further north. So that just lets you know. And a lot of this is happening, we've noticed, in South Miami-Dade, which traditionally was kind of too far, drive till you qualify area, but that's right now where the big builders are moving to in terms, and they're delivering townhome products that's relatively affordable for commuting buyers. So some things you should know, wrapping up Southeast Florida, West Palm Beach has been termed the Wall Street South. So there have been over nearly 100 financial services firms that have relocated to West Palm Beach over the last year. Goldman Sachs, Elliott Management being two of the large players, and most of these are landing in West Palm Beach's central business district. And about half of these communities really arrived during the COVID-19 pandemic, meaning the first 12 months of the pandemic. So Wall Street South continues to attract more financial services firms. The Class A office market there is performing very, very well. And again, the diversification of the economy is important. St. Lucie to the north is attracting residents not only from the Northeast, but also from South Florida. Remember, the further south in South Florida you go, the more expensive the home price is. Well, St. Lucie is a relative bargain for people who, say, have owned a home in Miami. And the work from home trend has been a big part of this. We have surveyed a lot of communities in St. Lucie County over the last year. And one of the dominant drivers are people moving there from Miami who are maybe only going to work or they're only traveling to their office once or twice a week because they have more flexible work options. And you get relatively more home for your dollar in St. Lucie County. So that's been interesting to watch. I mentioned earlier, we're seeing more residential opportunities popping up in Martin County, which has traditionally been kind of anti-development, but we are seeing some more opportunities there. There's been growth in South Miami-Dade. This is where the big builders are expanding. They're offering attached products in Hialeah and Florida City. And then finally, I do want to close South Florida's section with what Ali mentioned. And we're seeing affordability concerns across the entire state. So Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale were actually in the top 5 cities, according to the National Association of Realtors, for rental rate increases. Guess which one was number 2? Orlando. Number 3 was Tampa. So affordability, a growing concern in Florida, despite all this strong job growth and migration. So to wrap it up, our Florida outlook, we do expect continued strong migration from more expensive areas. That's going to be good for the economy and diversification, and it's also going to maintain our pricing. Although this is really going to go at a slowing rate and will vary by submarket. Again, affordability concerns are evident. The state's economy is different than it was 15 years ago, and it is becoming increasingly diversified. So Florida, no longer the vacation and retirement destination. It's a growing tech area and financial services area to do businesses and a large part of this is because of the tax advantages and the business-friendly climates that continue to attract company relocations. And if I had more time, I'm sure I would go into some more of the smaller markets in Florida. Florida is such a big state. We're seeing growth in Panama City, Pensacola, Gainesville, Ocala, lots of different areas. So if you're looking at opportunities in Florida, don't just focus on these major metros. Look beyond the metros as well. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. As Ali thought, unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions today. But please, if you close out the webinar, you'll get a survey. Please fill out that survey. That helps us tailor our content to what you would like to hear. And we, again, want to thank our sponsor, Ally. So with that, I will wrap it up and thank you for tuning in.